An apology followed with a but is a non-apology. So another way to say that is an apology with an excuse is no longer an apology. And welcome to this week's episode of the Archive Podcast.
Episode 14, Beanie.
You are exponentially cooler than I am.
I didn't realize the beanie was going to attract some attention. We had a sunrise shoot this morning, and I posted a lot of the behind the scenes, and I had a couple people say, man, you look cool.
You do look cool.
So I got the long hair.
Yeah.
My wife wants me to cut it. Got the beanie. It is like a crisp 50 degrees outside. We have a cup of coffee.
Cheers. Salute.
All is right in the season of fall. I love it so much.
It is great.
And we actually, we haven't even really seen each other in the last week. So this is like a genuine conversation.
The bros are back in town.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I have an update. So I have been going to the gym since last December. And I feel like I've learned something new. Okay. So like for the first 6 months, you're like, oh man, lifting the couch, easier to do. Groceries, obviously all in one run. Mm-hmm. But this weekend, I figured out another part of it. What you can't do.
Rest, yes.
So so here's the story. So it's almost deer season, right? Well, it already is deer season, but for modern gun, which I'm doing this year. So I got a new, it's like a two-person deer stand. And so I assembled it yesterday, put it all together, and then went to stand it up, right? Mm-hmm. Two-person deer stands, significantly heavier than
well, they're like 20 feet long as well.
1,000%. Yeah. So I get this thing locked out overhead, right? Mm-hmm. And immediately realize this is my limitation. Yeah. So instead of pushing it, which I would have done in the past, I set it down and then called my brother-in-law. I was like, brother, I need you to help me stand this thing up. So, but it is fall season. So deer, fall, coffee, it's all right there together.
Yeah. And I was at the beach all last week. And then a few weeks ago, I was out of state as well. I feel like I haven't been in this studio at all in the last few weeks. I love this place. Like I miss being in here. I miss sitting down and podcasting because we've kind of the viewers haven't really seen this, but we've nested a few podcasts. Like we recorded a few at once and then released them at later dates. I'm so glad to be in this place.
It's a good place to be.
Like you probably can't even see outside, but man, the trees are beautiful. Like there's energy in my soul today.
I like it. Yeah. Well, speaking of energy in your soul, today we are going to talk about how to establish yourself as a business owner. So I would think that this would be beneficial to people who are maybe within their first 5 years of owning their own business, and maybe that trend younger. So if they're wanting to learn some skills ahead of time for running their own business, or I would say there's even going to be applicable things to if you're in kind of corporate world and you're trying to work your way into positions of leadership. The idea that we're going to talk about today is how do you establish not only leadership in your kind of role, but also authority over time and being known as a person who can solve problems for other people.
Yes. And this is something I'm passionate about because what I have learned is, especially in the space we are in, which is media, which is photography, which is videography, graphic design, it is not enough to be good at your craft. You must be good at business. And I learned this pretty quickly. Whenever people hiring you to do work in the content creation space, that can only happen for so long before you have to be good at business as well. And you have to develop an arsenal for your business tools as well as your content creation tools. I want to hit on that aspect of today and speak more into that. I think that is where I think I'll feed into this conversation. But it is not enough just to be the good creative. You must also be good at business. If this is something you want to do for yourself on your own, you must be good at business and be an authority and a leader in business.
Let's start here. Mm-hmm. When you think of the stereotype of a creative, There are a few things that come to mind historically. So growing up, I always had the image given to me of the starving artist, because you can never make any money in being an artist or doing something creative. Or it's the person who's creative, but they're disheveled in all these other areas. Their desk is a mess, and all these different types of things. I do not like those stereotypes, mainly because I feel like you're put in a cage. And then what happens is, I think for some of us who come along and we are creative, but we also kind of have our stuff together in these other areas, we don't feel like we're creative, because a true creative is messy or is disorganized or doesn't have their personal life together. And so I think what I would like to do today, what I'd like to see us do, is break down these kind of walls of what traditional definitions of creative or business folks are. Because I think there's a reality that's on a spectrum, that everyone's got a little bit of creativity, everyone's got a little bit of business, and they are things you can work on. And so I would like to see us kind of break that down so that there's no excuse for the creative person not having order in their life and the business person not feeling like they have the ability to be creative.
I love that comparison. And this is something I kind of wrestled with for a little while. Even last year, I went to a documentary viewing, a live, for the first time, a documentary release. And there were a lot of creatives there. And what I just grasped onto, I was looking at them, they were cool. You could tell they were the creative. And I've even thought about this as I look at creative social media, and their work is so good. And then I talk to that creative in real life, and I'm like, man, you must be killing it. Things must be going well. What do you do full time? You must do photography full time, right? And they're like, no. I can't get enough leads. I can't get enough business. I'm looking at their work. I'm like, what the heck? And what I realize is there has to be that 50-50, because what I've mastered in the last few years, or I feel like I have from where I started, is I develop systems that create clientele just on a rotation. I didn't just focus on my work and what people see on social media, which I do put emphasis on that as well. But what I really focused on was how can I get clients, and how can I get them on a consistent basis, from a business standpoint. And I think this is a very, very important episode for the creative that has great work, but isn't seeing those clients on a consistent basis.
All right, so let's start there. So if you're the creative and you're watching this episode and you're thinking in your mind, I just can't get my life together. Everyone tells me that I should, be much further ahead than what I am right now, but I just can't seem to get there. Well, first of all, there is no should. So let's put down that kind of unnecessary weight on you. But I think there are practical ways that you can get more organized. And so let's begin there. Let's talk about tips for organization, strategies for organization. I'll volley one, then you maybe hit me one back. Okay. When you engage in any type of communication, I'll go back to something I said in the last episode. You have to have a system for intake, right? So intaking of requests, and then a system to get that intake to an output, right? Yes. So communication comes in. What is the calendar and then the to-do list? And I think that's literally the first place I would start. Anybody that's, I'm working through this right now with my third grader. When your teacher says, here's the assignment, let's figure out how we write that or record that so that we remember to do it and then get it done. Yep. That's it. That's all it is. And here's the thing. I despise how when I was a kid, and this, my teachers never told me this, but I kind of heard this from different people. Oh, well, you're lazy if you forget something, or you're a bad person if you forget. No. Quite literally, our brains are wired for being creative by creating ideas, not holding on to them. And that's not a me thing. I think it might be a David Allen getting things done book good thing. But that's the principle. It's not a moral failure if you forget to do something. It's just a reality that that's not what your brain's designed to do. So have a way that you can record what others are asking of you, and then a way to get those things done and track them. So a to-do list and a calendar, essentially.
Yeah. Mine's a little similar. My number one is a call to action. And I think this is where a lot of creatives do not capitalize. They focus on the artwork, they focus on the product, the creation, they focus on all that. That is so important. Now, the next step is the call to action. So this is something I didn't realize I kind of just grasped from an early age, is I knew, okay, I want to create great work, and I want people to gravitate towards that great work, and then I want them to book me. I knew that. I knew that was like part of business. And so what I did, and I just want to be real practical. So my social media, for example, there's two things I want people to know when they see especially my business social media. I want them, one, to see my work at a very quick glance. You know, what are the first 9 to 12 things they see? And does that represent my business? Are they impressed? And do they want to book? Now, the last thing is like, do they want to book? Okay, how can I make that as easy as possible for them? I have this arrow in my bio that says, you want to book, inquire right here. And it points to a link. They click that link, and that is the form that they can communicate with me and book within one click. So they've seen my work, they like my work, one click, and they can book me. That's my social media. Now, on my website, let's be even more practical. Let's say they want to see more work. They go to my website. They click through my website. What my website does is this big clock, or this big kind of rotating cycle, all pointing back to the book here button. Every single page probably has it 3 times, book here. Oh, you want to chat? Let's chat. And it takes them to that form. And so what I hope is that people gravitate towards my work, people like my work, but more than anything, there's a call to action. And this is something I've told you before on the podcast. I don't create work for everybody at this point in my life. Like, I have realized as a business, my time is valuable. With that being said, I create work for the clientele that I want to book. And so all my work points towards that clientele, and I'm hoping all that clientele is then pointed towards the call to action, which is, hey, let's talk, let's chat, let's book.
I think that's really smart, because what I hear you saying is you're being intentional about your communication pathways. There's a very clear directive that you're offering people, right, or that you're directing them towards. The next thing I would say, and this more has, I think, guidance for like younger creatives wanting to say, or wanting to seek out, how can I be viewed as more of a professional in my career? So here's the simple thing I would do. If you're going to send something, whether it's an email to someone, or it's a design for proof, or it's outreach to, potential client, do the simple things well. So I think back to Karate Kid, right? And so Mr. Miyagi's teaching, and it all is around this idea of like, do the easy fundamental things well, right? Those first things well. Rereading an email to make sure that all of your grammar is correct, that your spelling is correct, that it's clearly broken out and easy to digest for perhaps the person you're sending it to because they're busy. Having a really pointed ask. That stuff gets so overlooked, but I can tell you this: when I get an email that doesn't have a clear what I need from you, I'm not likely to respond quickly.
Let me give you a great example.
Jump in, man. Jump in.
I literally just got done telling you this. I said, this company that's hired me this week to do a video for their company, been a pleasure to work with, and I've only had one interaction with them so far, voice to voice, but they reached out to me with such a detailed submission of exactly what they wanted, when they wanted it, when it was happening, what they expected from me, why they are even reaching out to me, and then what basically just what they expect from me in one paragraph. So thorough, so beautiful. I mean, like, it wasn't just like, hey, I kind of think I want to do this event. And I immediately responded within 5 minutes to them, because I was like, this company gets it. This company, and I think it's something psychological. When you see a presentation that you can tell had thought, when you can tell had experience, behind it. That's all it is more than anything. It's like when I read that email, I said, they're experienced in content creation. I want to be a part of this. And so I immediately responded. And I think it's the same. And I'll just go to my second point. Like, you want to be a leader or like have authority in business, don't be afraid to reach out. Like, I think sometimes I'm speaking to the content creators here, I think sometimes as content creators, we get a little scared to send the email. We just want to receive it. We get a little scared to send the message. We don't want to receive it. Do not be afraid to send emails and be business savvy if you are a content creator. For some reason, do you agree, for some reason, content creators have gotten this like weird rap where we have to feel like the work must come to us to feel validation?
Yeah, I think, yeah. So, okay. So I would say there is this, it's kind of two extremes that I see a lot from some of our colleagues. Mm-hmm. There are those who are just like grind, and they're just sending every single cold email possible.
Yep.
And that's fine. I have literally no problem with that because there's effort, right? It's better than what I would say the other side is, which is no one ever asks me to do anything. I can't seem to get enough leads. And then you ask the second question, which you referred to earlier. What are you doing to generate leads? What are you doing to reach connections, make contacts with people, network? Oh my gosh, what a terrible word. Like people our age and our age demographic, I'm going to include myself and yourself in the same age.
Do it.
Because I got to be young, man. I'm not wearing the beanie.
I'm feeling older. I'm going to be honest.
Let's go, bro. Come on, bring it in.
No, I don't want to.
If you left me hanging, I'm going to dab myself. All right, here's the deal. When you think about people, boomers, they are sometimes maligned because they understand the importance of networking. So for a millennial or Gen Z to then say, oh, I don't want to go do these listen, bro, how do you think that you make connections with people? And it doesn't have to be grimy. It's literally, hey, my name's Caleb. It's really nice to meet you. Totally it. It's like sitting down at the lunch table in high school. It's not weird.
It doesn't have to
introduce
be the
yourself.
Sale up
it
front.
Doesn't. No.
Yeah.
Listen,
you do not have to
man.
sell yourself the first conversation, the first email.
No.
You can simply make connections without selling yourself. There's an aspect of selling just in the introduction of being vulnerable and saying, hey, here's who I am. Would you just want to connect?
And here is my way of like immediately curing the feeling slimy for selling. View yourself as solving people's problems.
Yeah.
As in, I'm here to help if you need it.
Yeah.
So if you meet someone at like a chamber luncheon or Rotary or I don't know, at some type of lunch, and they ask, what do? You say, listen, I run a strategic communications firm. And they're like, what is that? Basically, people come to me needing a message communicated to their audience. I build the bridge through communication. Podcast, documentary, social media, etc. And they're like, that's really interesting. And they're like, so like, what type of work do you do? And I solve people's problems. They come to me with a problem and then I help them solve it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's the way you keep from feeling grimy of being like, now, if you book me right now, I'm running a 30% off,
right.
That to me feels a little bit pushy. I tend to be more on the back foot a little bit because I'm trying to pick out which clients I want because I need my type of work that's going to be long-term to match up with their type of vision and values.
So you should have a call to action. You shouldn't be scared to reach out, but one of the most valuable tools also is the follow button. And you don't always have to sell yourself up front. Let yourself do the selling over time. So like one of the most valuable tools that I've learned over the last few years, if someone doesn't want to work with me immediately, or they don't have the funds, or they don't have the means to, that's fine. Go ahead and let's just stay connected. And over the next year or two, you're just going to build trust with one another just from seeing each other's life, sharing, on social media, what you love, what you don't love. That builds trust. People are watching you when you don't think they're watching you. And then when the time comes, when they do have the means and they're thinking, who do I know that can produce this thing for me that I need produce? They know immediately who they can think of. And it's not because you got the no up front that they didn't have the means necessary. It's because you said, okay, let's just stay connected over time. And if you ever need me, just let me know.
One of the things I tell young leaders all the time when I'm working with them is how you handle no determines when the eventual yes comes. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when young people are wanting to go into positions of leadership, they're told no or not yet. And how you respond to no totally determines how leadership that's going to put you in that leadership position, when and how, or if they ever will put you in that position, because that's one of the ways I think you test someone's humility. If you've got, and this is the thing, a lot of times leaders are accused of like, oh, you're cherry picking your favor or whatever. And that does happen. But a lot of times there are dynamics going on behind the scenes that people just can't be aware of, HR issues, things like that. With that being said, one of the things I hear the most from some of the best leaders I know is you evaluate people and if they're ready the next time by how they handle no this time. And man alive, like that's the same truth for clients. Being able to be that person that says, hey, listen, I'm here when you're ready. I'm here to help. And if there's a way I can ever be useful to you, just an advice, let me know. I'm here to help. There is, the best selling technique ever in my mind that has always worked and never not worked. Being generous.
Yeah.
Not letting people walk over you, not letting people take advantage of you, but being generous. And it goes, and we've talked about Gary Vee before, but his principle of 51-49, always being the one who's given just a little bit more. Pick up that lunch tab with a client. Like take them a gift, something that was meaningful to you that you think will be meaningful to them. That type of generosity isn't manipulative. It's looking at that person saying, hey, I thought of you when I saw this. Here we go.
Well, let's just think about the word authority for a moment. When I think of authority, I think of the people who raised me, for example. And I knew they always had me, right? Like I could always count on them. That's all it is like be the person in the room where like people see you and they know you, they can count on you.
Authority is not the person who can hire and fire. What I mean by authority is essentially the definition of leadership in my mind, which is influence, someone that people want to follow. And so every morning when I'm putting the girls in their, in the car, lunch boxes, backpacks, piling all this stuff in, right before they leave, while we're buckling in, it's like, hey, what are you? Smart, kind, strong, and brave. What's a good leader? They answer back, helping people. That's it, man. And I think that applies to the principle of business so well. Be known as the person who is there to help solve people's problems. And then all of a sudden you become known as the person who solves problems.
I got another one for authority. And I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I feel like this is a perfect example to throw it out again. So whenever I was probably about a year into my business, and I was just kind of struggling with the comparison game, as most business leaders or business owners do, like comparing my chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 50. And a business owner told me, she said, listen, Austin, because I was kind of wrestling. Do I go full time with my business? Do I not? I don't know. She said, people are only going to take you as serious as you take yourself. She said, you need to start putting yourself out there and don't care what other people think. Because you need to care what you think about yourself first. And when she told me that, I'll never forget that. Because I quit my job and I said, I'm going fully in. Like, I got no more time to play this game with myself mentally. Like, I don't know if I can do this. When you believe you can do something, and this is not to sound just like motivational. This is just from experience. This has worked over the last 4 years. This has been true to my life, and it's came true. I took myself serious. Were people making fun of me like at first? Sure, that's expected. But over time, they have also taken me serious because now they see, oh, he's made a living off of this thing that was once a hobby. He turned into a business. He took himself serious. That is a level of authority, just like within yourself, is saying, I'm going to take myself serious so that others will take myself serious as well.
When I think about developing authority within like a system, if you're kind of low man on the totem pole, you're working on your way to becoming someone who's helpful, and you're like, man, how do I get taken more seriously? I think back to when I was working at the school system, and we're trying to develop like this brand and brand awareness, brand repair in some ways, and all these different things. I bought my C70 that I was going to use for work out of my own money. So there was $0 in the budget to spend on anything. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to get this done, that means I've got to do it. So when I was working for the school system, and I just saw my old contract over the weekend, making like, I think $38,000 a year, I bought my own $5,500 cinema camera and made payments on it over a year to pay it off, $500 a month. I was making $38,000 a year, 2 kids at home, the house, all that stuff, married. And when I think back to that, that was the moment where I was like, I'm taking this job so seriously. I'm putting $500. That was almost our first house mortgage payment a month out of my own pocket to level up this. And there was such an exponentially, like there's an exponential rise in quality, but also the timeline within which that happened was so short, because then all of a sudden the quality of the content that we were putting out, no one in the US was putting out content from a public school like what we were doing.
I agree.
And I searched for it. I was looking for it. And so when I think about that, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm saying that was the moment it clicked in my brain. Oh, if I take myself seriously, and then it just went on from there. I started taking online courses in design and in communications on all these different things. And I was paying for these things myself because I knew that if I was going to be taken seriously, I had to level up. And so when I think about that, I'm like, okay, there is so much free content out there right now. So if you have a lack of knowledge, like you're just ignorant of the things you need to know and you're trying to be taken seriously in an organization, dude, get on YouTube. Get on Skillshare, get on these different blogs, Seth Godin, Gary Vee, all these different things, and just soak up that information. Because when you like inundate your conscience with those things, it will soak in and begin to filter through shaping your thoughts on things like design, communication, interpersonal skills, the ability to be on time, the ability to execute, all those different types of things, and you will be taken seriously.
100%. I've got a couple more. I think this is one of the most important things when it comes to being a leader in business, or just going back to that word, having authority in business. I think you need to know what you're going to say before you say it. And so here's what I mean by that. Whenever I was early on in my business, people would ask me what I would do. I kind of just I didn't really know what to say. I was like, what are you doing now? People would ask me that because they knew I was like maybe full-time, and I kind of was just like, I do videography. Like that was my answer. That was the worst answer I could have possibly given them. And so, this floats around this phrase like the elevator conversation. Like you need to be able to pitch your business in an elevator from the first floor to the 5th floor. Like you need to tell someone what you do in that amount of time, and they need to be sold on what you do. I think that's very important. I think you need to be confident and know what you can bring value-wise to a person, to a business, to a corporation within, let's say, 1st floor to 5th floor, 45 seconds. Someone should be sold on you. They believe you are confident in what you do, and you have the authority, you have the experience, you have the value that they are looking for in their business, and they want to bring you along. That is very important, because what I realized when I would get phone calls from random numbers and corporations were asking for my service, but they weren't sold yet, I had to convince them they should hire me because I have value over that phone call right there in the moment. And so when I started to master, like, hey, here is what my value to your company is, over that 1 minute conversation, the next minute, and they said, yeah, we trust you. Like, let's do this thing. That was a game changer for me. I no longer lost those phone calls. I got those phone calls, and I began to actually close those deals on the phone, because I knew that conversation was just as important as the actual product that they were going to receive. I would have never got to the point of production if I didn't take care of that conversation first.
When I think about the elevator pitch, I think it's one of those things where you are communicating not only confidence in what you do and your ability to help solve their problem, but also competence. And so if I were to describe simply, for example, what I do, when the thing that you're trying to communicate is critical to your mission, my firm becomes mission critical. That's it.
Yeah.
When I think about the people that we work with long term, the way that I like to position the work that we do is if we all of a sudden disappeared overnight, it would be painful. Not in the sense that they're left without the tools that they need to do, whatever it is, but that what we bring to the table helps them so much that it would be painful to then lose that service. And I think that's what you're trying to communicate is not only, again, the confidence that you can actually solve their problem, but then also having the skills and the competence to back it up. So, okay, one more kind of thing that I would lay on the table is this. Accountability is hands down the thing I would say is the most important to having authority, leadership, influence, whatever you want to talk about as a business owner. The ability to do the following. I messed up. Full stop.
Yeah.
That was 100%. This whole thing, the ball was dropped by me. It's no one else's fault but my own.
Yeah.
And then you stop talking. You stop talking.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why I say you stop talking. An apology followed with a but is a non-apology. So another way to say that is an apology with an excuse is no longer an apology.
Yeah.
You think about an interpersonal relationship. If I was to, break your camera, right? And you're like, man, what happened? And I was like, listen, I'm sorry, but here's the deal. And then I gave you this list of reasons.
You're not sorry.
I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. I need to take full ownership and then be ready to receive whatever the consequences are that happen in the relationship. Same with business. And I cannot tell you how many people on a weekly basis I either interact with or hear from clients interacting with other people that either people, one, don't even attempt the apology, or two, they follow it up with so many buts, it sounds like a hip hop song from the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a good dad joke, wasn't it? Hold on. Did you appreciate the dad joke there? So many butts is like a hip hop song of the 90s.
It was very good. I'm still a new dad, so
It's all right.
I'm aging into these dad jokes. I'm getting there.
I'm
though.
here for you, man.
I am no longer as funny as I once was.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm more funny.
I think you're more funny.
It depends what room I'm in.
That's what I'm saying.
Here's how you can bypass the I'm wrong. And this is where authority, I think, really thrives, is what is the accountability up front. When you can identify what the accountability is up front in a business, you save yourself so much headache. And all it is, it's this word again, little buzzword, thrown it out a couple times already, it's systems. So if, again, for content creation purpose, if you are someone who is creating content, what is the accountability from step one on both sides? Let your client know what is it that they should expect in return, because you don't want to get to the point where, let's say you've shot this event, you've had the production day, and then the client is expecting more on the return than you once thought. Make sure there's no thinking out of it. Make sure the deliverables are on the table so that the client knows, hey, here's what I expect to get. Hey, here's what I expect to produce. Because then when the time comes for the deliverables, there's no sorries needed because the expectations are already out there and accountability has been taken care of from step one. Man, if I could go back 5 years and tell myself that, I would have saved myself so much headache because there was just no expectations. Like there was no accountability from either side. And I didn't know what to deliver because there was no promises beforehand of, what it was that I was delivering in the first place. Accountability starts with systems.
Successful businesses do not run on vibes.
No, they do not. and I've worked with great people, but it is not enough to just vibe. I mean, you need to know what it is both sides expect from the beginning.
Related back to when people kind of bristle at having a calendar or a to-do list. You don't want those things until you need them.
Yeah.
And the same with systems and clarity on deliverability, because the mature business owner only uses apologies when there has been something catastrophically go wrong. Mm-hmm. Because as Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, says, this is not a strategy when you're flying a rocket ship to space. Like, you can't cross all your fingers and toes and then just like hope on good vibes that the rocket ship does what it needs to do. And his thing is you have to be so versed in all of the procedures and mechanisms that when something goes wrong, it's second nature. You solve problems. And I think in a lot of ways that goes back to like the apology is only helpful when it's like an act of God. Like, I don't know, a meteorite hit your camera or your laptop or something like that. Okay. Any other words for wisdom or of wisdom?
I don't think so. I think that was about all I had right there. I think those are my main points of having authority in business, leadership in business. Just to recap, because I think it's important, I think call to action is one of the most important things. If you just can't seem to have authority in business, and you know what I mean by that is it just doesn't seem like things are on a rotation. Like, it doesn't seem like clockwork. It doesn't seem like things are just kind of consistently happening. Do you have a call to action? Do you have accountability from the get-go? And then what was that middle one I said again? I can't even remember off the top of my head. Maybe you recap yours, because I want to think. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think for me, it comes down to, you know, the very first point, have your intake system, your output. And then two, just, we said a lot of things, but the one I would say is like, remember this, at least from my perspective, is build authority by actually knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Do not have false bravado. Don't be the guy who everyone behind their back is like, yeah, he acts like he knows what he's doing, but when you leave the room, they're like, okay, let's fix this because he blew it up or whatever. Like, just don't be that guy.
Let me budge in, because I did remember it. Take yourself serious. And then people will take you serious as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, so hopefully this has been helpful to you. It is always, I think, our goal. We talked a little bit about this today when we were kind of just catching up. There is a lot, and I'm just going to say it, there's a lot of terrible advice, especially to young men, young creators, young women as well, on like fake it till you make it. That was the more young men thing. There's a ton of influencers out there who are just like broing up the whole thing. Right. Please take it from us. We've been through it. This is like real life advice. You can actually talk to us on the internet. And our ideas are just there to try to help save you the headache of some of the mistakes we've made.
100%.
So, all right. Until next time, thank you for watching.
Peace.